How exciting. Is this your first, darling?
It is.
This is Steve's first bucket lister of a seal. So we've done a swap this afternoon. He took this out of my hands and I went on the mine lab and he took the Nocta. And this is so caked in soil. Oh, I'm so excited to see what's under this. We do have some distilled water in the car. Whether I can persuade Steve just to put a drop on just to start. We're not going to go mad on this. I just want to know what's underneath. How exciting. Lucky boy. You're a lucky boy.
I am.
You lucky boy.
Bloody blew my ears out.
We prefer not to wet our finds when we're out detecting. We did make an exception for this find, however, because this find is really rather exceptional. It's at this point we've seen enough to know we need to stop. We are going to wait till we get back home and do this properly. Two hours later, and under a jeweller's loop, we are staring down at the face of this man, and he appears to be staring straight back at us. An ecclesiastical looking gentleman with a mitre on his head. He is sitting under the arch of what looks like a religious building. As we're looking at him from this point of view, in his hand on the left, he is holding a staff. The hand on the right is giving a blessing sign. This hand gesture is known as the hand of benediction. This hand gesture tells us that this figure is a pope. It's only at this point the penny has dropped and we realise that this seal matrix is made of silver. The fact that this is made of silver is a game changer. This find is legally treasure. It's ticking the boxes on the Treasure Act. It's over 300 years old. It is an artefact and it is made of precious metal. We are not going to attempt to clean it other than the distilled water that it had at the side of a field. The brown tarnished staining you can see on both sides of the seal. We are going to leave this. We're not going to attempt to remove it or clean it. This will be done by the people at the museum. It's quite a heavy little object. It weighs in at just over 10 grams. These style of silver matrix date from the 12th and 13th century. This is a personal seal as it is carrying the owner's name around the edge. Normally they would have been made from a lead or a copper. As this is silver, it is telling us the person who was sealing his documents with this was important. Important, wealthy, and a man of religion. Other designs that were fashionable on matrix seals back in the 12th and 13th century depicted the Lamb of God. The Lamb of God is also known as Agnus Dei. Another design very popular back in the day was the Mother and Child, or the Virgin and Child. Inscriptions on these seals can be a little tricky to read as it is a mirror image. Once we've made an impression in some wax, we can view the design correctly and all of a sudden we can see a lot more detail. The inscription begins with the letter S and an apostrophe. This sits at about 1 o'clock if you were looking at a clock face. The S comes from the word sigillium, and this is Latin and it means the seal of. The next three letters are R-O-B. This is the Christian name and it's been shortened for Robert. D-E follows, and I believe this is French for the word of. In the 12th and 13th centuries, the person's surname was often based on their place of origin. And in this case, we believe the place of origin is Kelling. So we've got possibly a Robert of Kelling, dating sometime between the 12th and 13th century, rich, educated and connected to the church. We now need to try and track down if such a man ever existed about 800 years ago. Where do we start? This find is treasure. We only have 14 days on our side and then we've legally got to report this to the coroner. So 14 days to sort quite a lot out. There's every chance once the seal has been taken away from us, we might never actually see it again. So first stop, we need to go find the farmer, show the farmer, tell him what's happening. Second stop, we need to go to the records office. We need to get on the internet, in the history groups, get some books out, etc. We need to try and work out if this gentleman ever existed. Also, within the next 14 days, ideally, we would love to get a copy of the seal made. And the best way to get a copy of the seal made is a 3D scan. So, over to Steve.
So we took the seal to an engineering company that specialised in 3D scanning. And they were able to produce a very high resolution scan of the seal, upload that to their computer and produce a 3D model. They were able to send that model to me, and later on I'll show an animation I produced on my computer. Once they'd done their scanning, produced the model, they were able to produce copies in wax, and then from those they're then able to cast copies in silver. We had two produced, one for us and one for the landowner.
The Reverend Francis Bloomfield. He is an English historian and he wrote a series of books. An essay towards the topographical history of the county of Norfolk. Not a particularly catchy book title, but he was very thorough in his writings. Several volumes of these books, each with descriptions of Norfolk towns, villages and hamlets, explaining the monasteries, churches, chapels and other religious buildings here in Norfolk. It was in these series of books that we first came across the names of the de Kellings, a Sir Hubert de Kelling and a mention of Binham Priory, a Master Robert de Kelling mentioned in the same sentence as a place called Egmere. Egmere today is a deserted medieval village. More writings from other sources were naming Robert a son of a Sir Hubert de Kelling. The references to places like Egmere, Binham Priory, these places sit either side of Walsingham. Walsingham is a very important religious site here in Norfolk, more so in medieval England. Meanwhile, during all this research work, Steve and I are both busy in different little projects creating. I've been learning how to produce wax imprints of the seal and have videoed myself doing so. And Steve's been busy on his computer with the 3D model scans, the results of which you'll see now. Us two took a 40-minute car ride out last week to the parish of Kelling. Wanted to visit the Grade 2 listed St Mary's Church in the parish, an ancient 13th century building constructed from flint. It felt a little bit like a moment of eureka when I turned and saw the first name on the list of the rectors of Kelling. There was Robert back in 1266. Robert de Kelling founded the Church of St Mary's. So have we actually worked this out correctly? Does this seal that Steve has found, was this once sealing documents nearly 800 years ago for some fella called Robert de Kelling? The seal is now in the hands of our Fines Liaison Officer. The ball is in their court now. We only had this object for a matter of weeks, and hopefully our attempt to research has been correct. Only time's going to tell. We've now got to sit back and be ever so patient to await confirmation from the expert. Unfortunately, the treasure process here in the UK can take many years for them to reach a decision. So this story has to be continued. Hopefully we don't have to wait too many years.